record. So let me share my screen over here. All right. So if you have a look in the Google Classroom, you will see that today I have posted assignment 3 over here. So you can take the due dates that are written over here as final and the due dates that are given in the syllabus as estimates, right? Because as we saw, there was certain delay in how much we were able to do last two lectures. So in assignment 3, you can click over here to look at what assignment 3 is about, right? So let's have a look. Your client is extremely indecisive with what to do with their free time and wants you to develop a simple program to make suggestions as to what they could do based on a few factors. This program should be able to store. So when this says this program should be able to store, your mind should be thinking, I need to make variables, right? So these are the 3 variables that you'll need to make. Weekday indicator, whether or not it is a weekday, the current weather, and the funds the user has available to spend. All right. Then the client lives in a place where the weather is always either nice, raining, or freezing. So the program should verify that the weather entered matches one of these values. So a hint over here is use a set along with the in operator. All right. So I'll let you think about what that means. And then after viewing that the weather entered is valid, the program should do the following. In the case that it is a weekday, the program should output a reminder stating you may have work, or so it will state this, right? And then you can go through the rest of the assignment and it will give you cases like this where you'll be asked and basically an if statement, and then you'll have an output for it, right? So you have to treat these as if statements. You have to really read through these, okay? And if the English in this is not clear, and if anything like that is there, please let me know immediately, right? And I would suggest you go through this as soon as possible. Once you do understand it, it shouldn't be very hard to implement. It should just be nested if statements as we learned in lecture 3. Is everybody with me so far?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So that is all I have for assignment 3. If you have any doubts, please save them for after class because we are already falling a little behind in terms of our course material. So I would like to keep our focus on there. So let's move to the course material now. All right. So this is where we left off last lecture. Oh, sorry, 1 second. Okay. So here we have arrays, right? So what are arrays? Can anybody remind me? We learned about them last time. And how are they different from sets? Let's see who's awake. Nobody? Okay. So arrays, as we learned, let's go back. Arrays, as we learned, are an ordered collection of non-unique values that are all of a specified type that are mutable. Okay. So what this means is it is an ordered collection. What does an ordered collection mean? It means that the order matters, that the order in which you will write it is the order in which it will be outputted, and it is the order in which it is stored. Yes, so they are ordered, right? So another way they're different from sets is that they are mutable. So uh, what mutable means is that we can index them. So in indexing, we saw that we can access. Oh, somebody has their mic on unmute. Okay. Okay. There we go. So let's go back. Right. So we were accessing individual items, right? So as you remember, we can use the square brackets to index arrays, right? So what we can do is, so how we start indexing is, let's see. Oh, sorry. Just give me 1 second to join with my tablet so that I can annotate side by side. All right. So as we saw over here, if we have an array, right? If we have an array, let's say, right? Let's say this is our array, right? So we start indexing with 0. So the first element is the 0th element. Then we first, second, third, and fourth. Okay. And then we can access these elements by using square brackets, right? So if we have square bracket 0, it will take the 0th element. So it will be this one, right? And it will output it. Same way if we do for the first element, this is the first element. So we get 2. All right. So we computer scientists are a little weird. We like to start our counting from 0 instead of 1. That is the only takeaway here. So I have a question in chat. Will I be sharing the video for the last 2 classes? Yes, today it should be done. I already have the videos ready. They were rendering. Otherwise, I would have uploaded them before class. Anyway, so now moving back to where we were, right? This is what we learned in last lecture. All right. So the first array method we want to learn is append. So what is a method first? Let's try to see what a method is first, right? So a method is nothing but a function that can be used on an array, right? A function or any kind of action, right? That is done to any kind of object or any kind of data type is called a method, right? So the first method we want to talk about is append. So let's see the example over here. What does append try to do? So my array dot append 11, right? So if we just sneak back real quick, my array is this array, okay? 0, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All right. Now, if we look over here, we did append, right? We did the append action. We did append 11. And this resulted in an 11 being added to the end. Okay. Now, if we do my array dot pop, okay, what it will do is it will simply pop the last element from the back. So the opposite of append in a way you can think. So over here, my array had become this array, right? Until 11. So when we did my array dot pop, we got a return value of 11, right? Because that 11 has now been removed from the array. We'll see these examples. Right now, I'm just trying to give you an overview, okay? So then we have insert, right? So what is insert? So in insert, instead of appending it to the very end, what you can do is you can put it in the middle of the array, right? So for example, over here, we have value and index. So value is the number or the value that you want to insert. And this is what you want to insert. And index is where you're inserting it. Okay. So the example we are looking at over here is 1 comma 1, right? So the value is 1. We are inserting 1 at the position 1. So position 1 would be 0 first and then 1. Please have yourself muted when you're joining class. There we go. Okay. So going back to this, we have the 0th element is 0, then the first element is 1, right? So this is where it got inserted, right? It will go into that position and move everything 1 forward. We'll see more examples of, I will show you examples of all of these in a moment, okay? Now we have remove. Removes the first occurrence of a specified element from an array, right? So they defined an array over here, this array, right? Then they said remove 3. So what does it do? Removes the first occurrence, right? So let's see what the first occurrence is. So is this 3? No. Is this 3? No. This is 3. So this 3 gets removed. So as we see over here, that 3 is no longer over here. Then for index, it returns the index of the first occurrence of a value in the array. So it will go through the array and tell you the index for that number. So my array is this array, right? So 1, oh, 1, 2, 4, 3, 2, 1, right? This is our array. So now we have my array dot index 2. So the first occurrence of 2 is this. And this is the 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is the first element, right? That is why we get 1. Now let's see examples of these. Just give me a second. All right, so let's remove all of this. All right, so the first method we want to do is append, right? So let's make an array first. So how do we make an array? We do okay. So as we remember from last class, I said sometimes when you have a red squiggly line over here like this for array, you have to import it, right? So wait, this looks wrong. Yep, I did the other way around. Okay. Okay, let's try to make it the normal way. Um, right. So first we have append. So first let's make a print statement so we can see the before and after, right? So we have print my array. Now let's do append. Let's say we want to add 6 to the end, right? Now let's print it out again and see the results. So as we can see down here, we have first the array was only 1 2 3 4 5 as we had defined it, right? Then we printed it out. This is how we got this output over here. Sorry, just this one. Then we have an append function, right? An append method. We appended 6 to the array. That is why when we printed it out again, we have 6 at the end. Okay. Now let's see what is next. Next we have pop. Okay. So let's do my array dot pop. So the interesting thing about pop is it gives you an output, right? So if I print this out, this will give me the last element. So this gives us 6, right? But now if after this, you also print out the array, that 6 has been kicked out, right? So that is how it gets the output. So basically what pop does is it takes the last element, takes it out of the array and gives it to you as an output, right? That is why we can use it in a print statement. Like we can use this expression in a print statement. If we try to use this expression, let's say in a print statement, let's see what happens. Okay. So we just get none because this doesn't really make sense for it to return anything because it is adding something to the array. But this removes something from the array. So whatever it is removing, it gives it to us as output. Okay. Is everyone clear on append and pop?
Good evening. I really understand append. It's like adding the array at 1 to 5, and when you did my array append 6 in bracket, it added the 6 to the array,
Mhm.
meaning a set of numbers between 1 to 6 from a set of numbers between 1 to 5.
Right.
But for pop, uh, my pop, I just saw 6 pinned open bracket my underscore array underscore pop bracket, then the entire bracket. I think I just saw a 6.
Yes,
So I don't
so
understand
this
why.
line prints out just a 6. So the thing here is what pop does is it kicks out the last element from the array, right?
Well, I just picked the last element from the array.
Right. And then gives it to you as an output.
Oh,
So so when you use it inside a print statement like this, you can use it you can print it out, right? So another thing you could possibly do is you can also use it to add something, right? So maybe you want to, let's say, add 5 to it or something and store that in a variable. You can do that. So if you print this out, it will give you 11, hopefully, right? So over here we have 11.
It's given a value.
So this can basically be used as data, as a data from inside the array.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
This is just an additional thing that the pop function can also do. The main functionality for it is to take out the last element and give us this, right? An array with the last element not there. So how this is useful is, for example, we have a list through which we want to go through everything. And as soon as we're done with one thing, we also want to get rid of it from the list. So in that case, we could use pop, right? That would do both the things simultaneously. Okay, so moving on, we have insert. So let's say now at this point, our array is 1 to 5 again, right? So let's say between 4 and 5, I want to place 7. Can somebody tell me what the insert value will be here, right? So I can give you an idea, right? So our value goes over here and our
Using
index
what?
goes over
Using
here.
what?
So put it in chat for me. What would be the value and the index? So put it as a comma separated value. We want to put a 7 between 4 and 5. What do we do? So for example, if I wanted to say um, index is 1 and val sorry, if I wanted to say value is 1 and index is 2, I would say 1 comma 2 like this. So we have a 7 comma 5. Any other guesses? 7 comma 5. All right, so let's have a look, right? So we have a 7 comma 4 in there as well. Is that right? Yeah. Okay. So let's see what the answer is. Okay. So this is our uh, array, right? So now how do we start indexing? So we're computer scientists, we're weird, right? So we want to start with 0, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? Now this is where I want to place it, right? Now I said when we want to place something, we place it in this place and everything else moves 1 forward. So the index we need over here is 4, right? And the value is 7. So we put 7 comma 4. So now let's also see the output. Okay. So I think there's a typo in the presentation. It's index comma value and not the other way around. So it should be 4 comma 7. Yeah, there we go. So a small correction over there in the presentation. The 7 is simply a value that I want to put in there. It's nothing special as such. The 4 is what we're interested in. That is the index. Any questions about insert?
in indexing, you always start from 0. You don't start from 1, right? I just want to be sure of it.
Yes, we want to start from 0 always.
Always. Oh, thank you.
Okay, so let's move on to the next part, which is remove. So remove is pretty easy. It will simply take the first instance of that element and then remove it, right? So let's make an array which has repeating numbers just so we can see it better. So let's say we have 1 comma 2 comma 4 comma 2 comma 2 comma 1, something like this. Okay, now I do my array 2 dot remove 2. Okay, so which 2 will get removed? You can tell me the index starting with 0. So we have a bunch of 1 in the chat, 2 in the chat, right? So let's see. We run this. Oh, I forgot to print it out. So we have 1, 4, 2, 2, 1. So the one at position 1, right? We start with 0, 0, 1, right? So the one at position, the 2 at position 1 gets removed. So 1 would be the correct answer. Okay. So the next one is index. Okay. So this will return to us the first index, right? So at this point, keep in mind my array 2. So I will put the value here just so you know, remember what it is over here, right? So we have 1, 4, 2, 2, 1, right? So we are trying to print my array 2 dot index and then 2. Okay, so there are two 2's over here and we will get the index for the first one. So what will be that index? What do you think the answer will be? We have 2 in chat. Okay, so let's try to run it and we get 2, right? Because it is 0, 1 and 2. Yep, right over here. Okay, so is everyone clear on array methods? Does anybody have any doubts over here?
Oh, I have a doubt.
Okay.
For the move. Uh, my underscore array underscore 2.
Mhm.
That 2 represents the value, right? Not the index.
Sorry.
Just to be sure. I said for the move now, the command my underscore array underscore 2.
Mhm.
That 2, is it the value or the index? I believe it's the value.
So my array 2 is an array, right? This is an array.
Yeah, the
Or
2, is it the value or the index? Is the
oh,
value, right?
this entire thing is just the variable name.
Yeah, but that number 2, what does it represent? Is it the index or a value?
No, I just wrote 2 to make it different from this my array. It's still part of the name. It is,
All right, all right, all right, all right, all right.
yes.
It has no significance. It's not value, it's not index. All right.
Yes.
So
I
my
could
array,
make
to
it
make
like
it
this
different.
as well. Just put the underscore at the end. That would work as well. Because this is still different from my array because my array does not have an underscore at the end. I was simply trying to make a distinction. This would be
All
the
right,
same
I
thing.
understand. All right. So my array remove 2. Then print my array.
So my array underscore is still different from my array. So these two will be treated as different variables by Python, right?
Mm.
That is what I was
My
trying to
point.
do.
All right, thank you. My point is you indicate the value to
This two, do you mean?
yes,
Oh,
remove
okay.
2, yes.
So this
Yes.
two removes the first instance of whatever is present inside the brackets, right? So the first instance would be this one. So this gets removed.
But you don't indicate the index, you just indicate the value and it picks the first occurrence of that value.
Yes, correct.
Or what if I want to remove another one else apart from that, the first one? Is there any
Yeah,
way you can specify that?
yeah, you can just do it again. There we go. It'll remove the second one.
All right, what I mean, like the first command now is not like I want to remove the first two. Let's say I want to remove the last two. Is there a way I can specify? Or I have to remove one by one until I get to that one? Can't I just
You
remove the
can use
last two?
pop. You can use pop for the last two.
All right.
No, actually. So yeah, so you'll have to use other methods. So I will give you more links. Okay. So
All
actually, let's do one thing. I wanted to show everyone after class, but let's just go right now and see it, have a look. So there's a website I really like to show everybody that I tend to use a lot as well. It's called W3 Schools. Okay. So go here to Python tutorial, and in here, what you can do is you can go to, let's say we're trying to do arrays right now, right? So you can go to Python arrays, and in here, there'll be a bunch of information about arrays, right? So it will, let's get to, yes, so removing array elements, right? So we have array, we have pop, and we have remove, okay? So according to this, there is no other way to remove elements. So these are the only two ways you can remove them. So you have to keep this in mind when you're making arrays and using them.
right. So sorry, just to be sure, you can only remove the first occurrence of that particular value
Mhm.
for the last one, but you cannot remove anyone in the middle. That's what you're saying.
Correct. We can. There are other methods. So um, there are the other ways to use that. What do you call it? To use that array, right? We use that array. We can split it, right? And split down the middle, and then get rid of the second half, and then attach the last element or something like that. So there are other ways you can employ, but for the most part, these are the two methods you want to be using with arrays.
Thank you.
We will learn more about more data structures, and hopefully those will allow you to do what you want. Okay, so let's go back to oh, the lecture slides. Okay, so next slide, we have dictionaries. Okay, so a dictionary is an unordered collection of key value pairs where values are mutable but keys are not. So let's see what that means. Okay, so who can tell me what a dictionary is in real life? What is a dictionary?
Or a dictionary is a reference material where you check up meanings of words and synonyms, antonyms,
Mhm.
idioms, and so on,
Correct.
and pronunciations and others, phonetics. And
Right.
it's normally in alphabetical order. Thank
Mhm. Yes. So a dictionary, you can think of it in this way as well. So as you said, it is a list of words, right? So those words you can think of as the key, right? And the description of those words you can think of as the value. That is basically what we mean by a key value pair, right? So in arrays, the key was basically the index of that number, right? We did have a key in arrays as well, but they were just the index of the number, right? So for example, we have a, let's say we have an array which looks like this, right? You can also kind of think of it as a list like this, right? So for the 0th element, we have 0. For the first element, we have 1. For the second element, we have 2. And for the third element, you have 3. So I kind of like to think of uh, arrays as a type of as a specific type of dictionary where you're specifying the index as the key. So we'll see what we mean more when we look at a few examples. Okay, so over here we have key 1 value 1, key 2 value 2, key 3 value 3, right? Now these examples probably don't make a whole lot of sense, so what we'll do instead is let's go to PyCharm and look at an example. Okay, so over here, let's make our first dictionary. My, oh, my underscore dictionary or something. And then we can start it off like this. Okay, you can define it with a curly bracket, or you can define it, let's say, with just using the dict keyword, right? As we could with our normal data types. And then you can also use, oh, so you can also use another dictionary to define it. You can also do this with other data types, right? You can just copy whatever is in here, and then you can, oh, you can also compare them, right? See if they're equal. So let's say we want to print this out, right? So as they're both empty, this should be true, right? So let's now make an actual dictionary. So let's look at an English example, right? So let's say I have the need to make a dictionary, but for describing the weather, let's say. Okay. So what I want in this dictionary is when I ask it cool, it should say it is very cool today or something. This is just very, this is going to be a very stupid dictionary, but that's how we're going to do it. So now we do hot. It is very hot today, right? This is kind of what we want in our dictionary. So let's say we want just these two elements for now. So what we can do is we can say if it is cool, then it is very cool today, right? Okay, so this is a dictionary now. We can print it out if we want, right? So now some of you might be wondering, well, why is this useful, right? Why do we want to do this? So why we want to do this is maybe every time I have to write this line a lot of times in a program that I'm using. So I thought it would be useful for me to just write this instead every time and have it print this out when I want to. So how I can do that is I can do this. So using the square brackets again, but this time the index is actually the key, right? So when I do this, it will say it is very cool today. So it will give us the answer for that key. It will give us the value for that key. Does this make sense to everyone?
All right, you have to specify cool, but if you don't specify, will it print both? Will it print both? It is very cool today. It is very hot today, or it will not print anything.
So if we are printing out the entire dictionary, it will print the entire dictionary out, right? But a dictionary is not very useful when we're printing the entire thing out, right? What do we use a dictionary for? When we have a single word and we want the entire description for it, right? So in a Python dictionary, what we want to do is we have a single key, a small descriptive key, right? And we'll have a kind of answer or a value for it, right? Which is larger, and we don't want to write it continuously in our code or something along those lines. So what we can do is we can use this key to call the value that is corresponding to that key. So for example, if I want to call, sorry, if I want to call this sentence that it is very hot today, I can use the key hot, right? So over here, I can say hot, oh, inside the square brackets. So if I print this, it will say it is very hot today. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Sorry, you explained how this is applicable. I just missed that. Could you explain again how this is useful?
Yes, so let's say in your code you want to maybe write this line a lot of times, right? So it is kind of tedious to write. It is very, right, it is going to be a longer code. Instead, what I can just do is I have Python write it for me, right? I can just use the dictionary, then use the key in here and call it, and we're good. I can call this entire sentence by just using this line of code. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
The uses become more clear as in when you start doing tasks. So assignment 4 will actually be about dictionaries, so you will be able to see what the application is there. Okay,
Okay, thanks.
so this is our starting point for dictionaries. Let's go back to our presentation. All right, so instead of indexing, values in dictionaries can be referenced using their keys. So this is what I was talking about, right? So instead of using the indexes 0, 1, 2, 3, and so on, we are using the keys because they are not ordered, but they're stored corresponding to each key, right? So you can call each element based on what key you're using. But if you try to reference a non-existent key, as they've shown over here, you will see that you will get an error, right? So if we look at this example that they've shown us, uh, the fave colored dictionary, right? In here, you can see they're trying to reference a key called Jack, but in here we just have David, John, Jane, Jill, and Paul. So we don't have any Jacks in here. That is why we got this error. Okay. So we can only reference keys that exist. So now dictionaries can be nested. This is very important. Okay. So why would we want to nest dictionaries? Now here is where dictionaries get really, really useful. Okay. So I will show you this in a second, but you can basically store any kind of information in dictionaries. I would think it is the best way to store information that is very wordy, that is very long and lengthy, right? You can also add new key value pairs to a dictionary. So you can always add new things. So as we saw over here, it was trying to call Jack when it didn't exist and we got an error, right? But we can add it like this. So let's see an example of this, okay? All right. So if in here now I try to print out, let's say very hard. If I try to do this, it will give us an error because very hot is a key that does not exist, right? So now what I can do is I can add it first, right? I can say it is way too hot today, okay? Now if I try to print it out, right? So it added it to the dictionary. If I try to print the entire dictionary out, you can see it in there as well, right? It was added to the dictionary in here. Okay. So now we were talking about nested dictionaries, and I said they're really, really useful. So let's see why they're so useful, right? So let's say we want to write down the information about an entire person, right? So let's call him John Doe. Okay, so let's say his age is, let's say 22. And he has a bunch of interests. Let's say in his interests, he has sports interests, right? Let's see, he watches cricket and football. And let's say he also plays video games. And there's FIFA and God of War or something, I don't know. And then you can also have other information. Let's see what we can have over here. I'm running out of ideas. Anybody have ideas? Um,
Education.
What about address?
address. Okay, yeah, let's do address. Right. So an address, let's say let's 234 East Street, Delaware or something. Right. So let's say this is all the information we want to store about a person, right? So how would we store this inside a dictionary? So let's see. So let's call this dictionary uh, John's dictionary. Okay. We have more suggestions in chat. We have address, email, job, food. Okay, let's do that. So in email, let's say abc at xyz.com. What else do we have? Food. Oh, oh, okay. So food, let's say vegetarian. Then in job, let's say unemployed. Okay. So let's make John's dictionary now, right? So John's dictionary will first have his name, right? So we have our first key that will be name. So we put John Doe, right? Now we look at his age. So we have our next key as well. We can do age 22, right? Oh, we didn't put a comma over here. Now we have interests, right? So interests. Now over here, we have an interesting situation because in interests, we have a bunch of stuff and it doesn't really look nice to me to just put it in one line, right? To like do something like, oh, sports, and then just put it in one line. That doesn't look very useful to me, right? So what I'll do instead is I'll make another dictionary in here. And then we can put it like this. And then here now we have two things, right? So how do we write two things? Well, I can use a set. Oh, we have to make these strings. So you can even use a set as a data type for a value, not as a key, but as a value, it can be used. Okay. So similarly for video games, we can have, let's say FIFA and God of War. Right. Oh, forgot a comma again. So next we can have address. Oh, another comma here. So an address, this we can just put in one string because I don't really care to put it in separate ones. And then similarly, you can do it for these three as well, right? As we did for age, name, and address. So you can feel free to do that in your free time if you feel like it. So for now, let's stick to these, right? So we don't have this. So this is all the information we have put in, okay? So now how do we access this information, right? So this is kind of interesting. So let's look at this, right? So let's say first we want his name. So how do we access his name? Anybody have any guesses? What do I write inside this bracket and print? Drop it in chat if you have any guesses. So somebody said name. I want to see the exact thing that I want to write inside the print statement. So let's see. Okay, so we have John Dict and then name. So then we have name. Okay, so a lot of people think it will be just name, right? So that is actually not the correct answer, because what is name? Name is a key inside this dictionary, right? And how do we access dictionary keys? Well, first we write the dictionary name, then we put a dot, right? Oh, sorry, then we don't put a dot. We put a square bracket, right? And then we say the key, and the key is name, right? So if we run this, we'll get the name of the person, right? Now I want the age. So now this everyone should get right. So now put it in chat. Who will be the first one? Let's see. How do we get the age? Okay, we have Achu here with the right answer. Okay, let's go. There we go, right? Now we try this and we have 22 over here, right? Now we want to access his interests. So let's see what happens when we print out the interests, okay? Oh, so we got this entire dictionary back, right? We got this entire dictionary back. So what do we do now? Well, there's two things you can think of, right? So this is a dictionary, right? And we can make variables. So we can put this inside a variable. So we can say John's interests equals John's dictionary interests. Now, if we try to print it out, it will give us the same thing because it is a variable storing this data type, right? So it's still the same thing, right? It's printing out all the interests. Now, the interesting thing here is it is a dictionary. And let's say I want only his sports interests now. So what do I write inside the print statement? So that is a correct answer. But how do we use John's interests to do that? Because John's interests is a dictionary, right? We want to use this dictionary to get only the sports interests. And this dictionary is written over here. This is the dictionary we're talking about. So what we'll do is we'll say sports. We'll just index it, right? So if we run this, we get cricket, football. Those are the sports interests, right? Is it clear to everyone how we use this? How we made John's interests into a variable and then use the dictionary within it. Now the shortcut way to do this is to just not make the variable and do what Achu did in chat and have this here. This is the same thing, right? Because they represent the same thing. Okay, I can explain again. So this is a nested dictionary, right? It is a dictionary within a dictionary. So the description of the key has keys within it, which further describe other things, right? So as we can see over here, interests is a key, and the value for this key is a dictionary, which has keys inside it, sports and video games, right? So now how we can access that is, first we use the key interests. How do we use a key? We put square brackets and we call that key, right? So then this entire expression is calling this dictionary, right? This expression, this dictionary. Why? Because we have this is the dictionary. This is all I'm talking about. Forget sports for now, okay? As we can see, the key over here, interests, right, has this dictionary as the value. So now in this dictionary, we want to access only sports, right? So how do we do that? We call this dictionary. So let's say this dictionary's name was dict1, right? So we would call this dictionary and then we would say sports. But this dictionary's name is not dictionary1. It is this, as we just learned, right? It is John's dictionary interests. That is a dictionary. So we can put another square bracket in front of it to index it further. And then we get this value, which is stored in just sports. Does that make sense? So for example, if instead of sports here, I did video games, I would get that as the answer. Oh, oh, yeah, there we go. Right? We got FIFA and God of War over here. Does that make sense? Okay, so let's move back to our presentation. All right. So dictionary methods. Dictionary methods, we have get, keys, values, items. All right. What do we have after this? Nothing. Okay. So dictionary get. So what get does is you can use a key, right? So if you use just the square brackets, you have a chance of getting an error if you use a key that is not available to you, right? So what if you want to do something a little safer, right? So what you can do is you can use get, right, which has two arguments, right? And the second argument is actually optional, right? So what happens is if you enter a key that is not present inside the dictionary, it will use the default value and give that back as the answer instead of throwing an error, right? So let's see this in action. We have get first. Let's make a dictionary. Let's call it red. Ready. This is going to be another stupid dictionary just to give you an example. Okay, so let's say this is our dictionary and I say print if I try to do this, as we saw, we'll get an error, right? So now instead of this, what I can do is I use the get method, right? So yellow, and let's say the default message I want to send is key not present. Okay. Now if I run this, we'll get key not present. As we first, it will check, is yellow in here? It says, oh, yellow is not there. So let's give this message back. If yellow was in there, it would give us the value back instead. So for example, if we have yellow, right? Now if we run it, we'll get yellowy. Because it is present, it never goes to the default message. So this is a safer way to index dictionaries. Okay. Then we have the next method, which is keys. So what keys does is it will return a list of all the keys. So if we do, for example, print mydict dot keys, so it gives us a list of all the keys, right? Red, blue, yellow. Next we have values. So this is very similar to keys. It will give us a list of all the values without the keys, right? So it gave us all the values. Okay. Then we have items. So this will return a list of tuples, which we will learn about later on. But you can think of tuples as pairs, okay, just two values. So what was it? Items. So it will make it tuple like this, right? So we have red, reddy, blue, bluey, yellow, yellowy, right? So these are the dictionary methods. Okay, so that is all I have for today's lecture. Let's see the presentation for a second over here. So as you can see, there are some W3 schools resources and stuff that is added over here. I will send out the lecture slides when I get, sorry, I will send you the lecture slides when I'm sending out the lecture videos as well. And I'm going to stop recording here.